Imagine living in a world where growing your own food is a form of rebellion. I think that is exactly the world we are living in right now. A world where if you want to know what goes into your food and your body, you have to grow it yourself, make it yourself, homemade, homegrown, from scratch. Otherwise, who knows what kind of freaking food you are actually eating. Food coming from factories, artificially made. When I think about a garden and some chickens, I used to see food. Now I see freedom. A way to escape a system that is trying to keep us stuck. A system that wants us sick and dependent upon them. This is not something I agree with or choose to partake in. Instead, I removed myself. I started a homestead. I'm building a garden, building a small farm. Unless you have been unintentionally ignoring what is happening in the world, you know there is something wrong. There's something off right now. There's talk of food shortages, worldwide famine, all because of what is happening in the world right now. Wars, they seem to be around every corner. Rent, utilities, food prices have all skyrocketed. Even in my small town, thousands are being laid off. Many are choosing to live in their cars instead of being homeless. Water shortages, droughts, data centers being built where farmland once stood. The world is in crisis. I sit here watching from my garden, from my small homestead. Recently I learned the term victory garden. So now I will refer to my garden as my victory garden, or also known as the war garden. I lived with my grandmother in high school. She was born during the Great Depression. Some of the habits she had trickled down to me, as well as to my parents. They were old school homesteaders. They taught me to never depend on someone else for your survival. This lesson stayed with me. Maybe this is why I fought so hard to get out of a broken system when I realized I was too deep into it. Debt. The cycle, 9 to 5. Stuck in a system I thought that I would never escape. Then I started looking around at the food and the healthcare system. Intimately familiar with both of these. Working in the healthcare system, I saw a lot. And I saw a lot that just didn't sit right with me. I knew from my background of coming from a family of farmers, people who worked the land with their hands, I knew where food came from. But something wasn't adding up. Somewhere along the line, me, as many others, lost that connection with the land, with where our food comes from, what healthy actually looks like and feels like. Sickness became the new normal, especially in my world in the hospital. Everyone seemed to be sick. Maybe I was just surrounded with it, but then, once I left, I still saw it all over. My eyes had been opened. And at that point, I felt lucky. In some twisted way, I found my way back to myself through healthy eating and learning to question what I was being told. I knew something had to change in my life. And for me, the only way out was to leave everything I knew and start over. This is not always the answer, not for everyone. But for me, it was the answer. And fortunately, it worked out. But that is not always the case. Before I left LA in 2018 and quit my job, a few years prior, I became obsessed with one question. How did people survive with so little? This was also the time of the big minimalist movement. I was confused. How could that be? How could people do that? I also wanted to get out of my comfort zone because I know myself. The only way I can move forward is to make myself so uncomfortable there is no choice. So I chose to live with less and see how much I could actually handle. Could I survive? Could I thrive? And was it enjoyable? I ended up enjoying it so much that I still live this way. I have more things now. I have a house, I have dogs, I have rabbits. But everything in my life has a purpose and a point. I don't just endlessly consume and buy. Eventually this led me back because recently when you look all around, people are talking about a depression, a recession, which led me back to thinking about my grandmother and the Great Depression. And eventually back to victory gardens because they are showing up everywhere in my newsfeed. So I started researching what is a victory garden. I mentioned it earlier, but to give you a truer meaning, when young men were sent off to war, families were encouraged to grow their own food and raise their own chickens to survive, to not be dependent on anyone else. This, in the U.S., became known as the Victory Garden or the War Garden. Then I started looking around the world now. I see a lot of similarities, except for one huge similarity. In the U.S., you are not encouraged to be self-sufficient. You are easier to be controlled if you are dependent. They want you to rely on them. They're not coming to save you. They have outlawed backyard chickens in some places. Some places don't allow you to have a front yard garden. This is insanity to someone who grows food in every empty space that I possibly can that has sun. I saw this coming. I saw the writing on the wall years ago before I decided to leave, when I started digging deep into research of food, what's in the food, what's in the labels, and then back to the hospital. How did people eat? Why was everyone so sick? Then I saw the rules and regulations around what you could do on your own land, and I did not like it. I've always been a bit rebellious, and I realized I was not willing to be stuck in a system that wanted to control you, to have you dependent on them for everything and anything, to keep you comfortable, to keep you controlled, to keep you distracted. We went from a nation that once encouraged self-sufficiency to one where it is frowned upon. Leads me back to dependence is easier to control. The debt system, dependence. And I refused to be part of it. As you know, I left. Start a garden. Raise backyard chickens. Learn how to feed yourself. Rebel against a system that wants you dependent. I think we need to bring back backyard chickens and victory gardens and front yard gardens. A rebellion that can save you and your family.
Becky, Becky, no.